Hey everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. Apologies for this video going up late. I've been waiting on model data to come in for the last 3 hours. So it has been a hassle and a long wait. So again, apologies there. Video is going to be up kind of late. And hate it when these kinds of situations occur, but sometimes this is one of the few things that's really out of my control here. So again, apologies there. Of course, it's not anything magnanimous that we're looking at here. I mean, it's a tropical update, and we do have a couple of things to talk about with this. Mainly with the update of Tropical Storm Jerry forming earlier this morning. This is a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm now. The 11 o'clock advisory was when it came in earlier today. This is expected to become a hurricane, but as we've seen all throughout the year, this is not going to be any impact to land. Honestly, there's another feature that I'll be talking about a little bit later in the video that might grab your attention. That may end up becoming tropical or not. If you look at the bottom left corner of your screen, that is a satellite image of Jerry. And I always love watching these as these continue to form. You can see it becoming much better organized over time here, especially towards the center of circulation. We're seeing clear signs of low level spin, which is exactly what you would want. You're starting to see some early signs of that buzzsaw motion here, but there are some inhibitions here. I do think some dry air might be coming into play on the south, maybe the southeastern side of the storm. And then the north side is also kind of struggling a little bit, but it also looks like it's trying to ventilate a little bit and breathe more, which will help it maybe further begin to strengthen from that point. As far as rapid intensification, I wouldn't rule it out, but at this current point in time, I wouldn't say that it is likely. If we were to go ahead and take a look at the forecasted intensity in conjunction with the track that we just saw, almost all the models have this making it up to at least category 1. A fair number of them have a push towards category 2, and a few of them, and I mean just a few of them, really are pushing it towards category 3. Jury's still out. With this area that we have seen throughout the course of the year, in which Jerry is in right now, we have seen rapid intensification occur, but that also could work to its detriment due to upwelling. Upwelling occurs whenever you have multiple large systems like Hurricanes Humberto and Aaron go through the area. And what ends up happening is that warm water that was originally towards the surface gets replaced with cooler waters that were well below the surface in a situation that's called upwelling. And cold waters are basically rising to the surface as that warm air is basically being pulled into the storm. So there is a chance with upwelling and being potentially included as a factor that it could inhibit the strength of Jerry. Ultimately, though, again, it's not really going to be a huge concern, as this is more than likely going to be a fish storm. Bermuda isn't really expected to receive any impacts from this. It looks like it's going to stay to the east of the center here. You might get some squalls and, of course, increased surf, the rip currents. Pretty much the usual as to what we've gotten this year. I will say, though, there are some tropical storm watches in effect for the northern Leeward Islands. These may or may not get upgraded to hurricane watches. It really depends on how the storm ultimately ends up performing. But of course, at this point in time, it's kind of impossible to upgrade to hurricane warnings unless we see clear signs of a hurricane developing. So we'll be keeping an eye on that satellite imagery as time goes on. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the inhibiting factors that could slow this down. There is some wind shear coming in, as we mentioned before, on the southern side of the storm, which is slowing it down ever so slightly. It's not going to keep it hampered for too long. But what we're really going to be paying a lot of attention to going forward is going to have more to do with the dry air, I would suspect. GFS and the Euro are kind of on the same boat as far as its track, especially once we get further up towards the North Atlantic. That wind shear is just going to rip that storm to pieces. So not really much to be concerned with there. And then from that point, as far as the update has been, as far as the rest of this update, our main interest is going to be, of course, this area over here. This is the Central American Gyre. And we've been seeing some signals suggesting maybe some development potentially occurring here within some point this month. But like I said, it's a little bit too far out of range for me to really latch onto. but we have seen a little bit of consistency. So we're going to be watching this very closely. With the wind shear that we have over towards the Gulf, however, I don't really suspect anything flourishing into anything major. But obviously, with us being that far out again, not a lot of confidence to be had. So time will only tell with that. If we were to go ahead and take a look at our humidities here in the mid levels, which is also a key factor for hurricane development, we were to push both of these forward. Here is Jerry. You can see that there's some dry air trying to get into the backside of this system. And this is also the point where I want to put our attention over towards the East Coast just a bit here. I'm actually going to move the satellite imagery off of here for Jerry so you can see it a little bit more clearly. You see that little low that pops up here on the GFS? Once the loop comes back around, you'll be able to see it more clearly. But if you look closely, right about here, I'm going to try to pause it and go back actually. You see a little bit of a low pressure center beginning to pop up over here just off the southeast coast. Now I've been seeing this run on some of the model runs off camera for a couple of days now, and I am suspicious as to what may come of that. Do I think this becomes tropical? I'm kind of doubtful. But it's interesting the way that this has been behaving. This might end up bringing coastal impacts towards maybe the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, or deep south. Models have been varying on this heavily, though. Some have pushed this in a north to south motion. It goes back up towards the mid-Atlantic, then drops towards the southeast coast, which is a really intriguing scenario, which causes a lot of showers and thunderstorms. And then it really is just kind of a sign of an overall active pattern in general. Now there is another low that ends up popping up with this as well, and maybe we could see another Fujiwara effect with this, and maybe the potential for another named storm to come out of it as well. So I mean, it's relevant to the tropics here, but it's just kind of wild the way things have progressed here. If we look at the Euro, we can kind of see the same thing going on with that towards the very end of the run. Since we're in the evening 18Z run, we don't have as much of a time slot available. We're only at 144 hours, but at the very end of the run, there it is right there popping up on the screen by the time we get towards about 105 hours on the Euro. And it's a pretty similar scenario, but notice how the Euro just kind of has it continually kind of looping around a bit around this time frame. So kind of hard to read as to what's going to happen with that, if that low does even manifest. But if so, things could get interesting over here towards the lower 48, regardless of whether it becomes a tropical entity or not. If anything, a tropical entity from that scenario only creates more intrigue in regards to our weather. With that in mind, we're going to go ahead now and take a look at our ensemble members. We're mainly going to be putting our focus towards, of course, what's likely to be Hurricane Jerry, and maybe over towards this coastal low. That small area development potential that's over towards Yucatan, I don't really give it too much of a shot at this point. It's a very small window of opportunity for that to get going. And then this is where our coastal storm kind of comes into play here. We've seen a few of the ensembles latching onto it, but like I said, this is where I still get a little bit uncertain with that. It's just the timing and the time frame in which it all develops. It's still kind of messy. Like I said, you see some ensemble members on the GFS latching onto it. You see more prominent members kind of leaning towards this scenario occurring over here towards the Caribbean, if anything. So it's really hard to latch onto that. Euro is kind of in the same boat along with the GFS ensembles, so that's why my confidence still isn't like over the roof per se. The operational runs have really been the ones that have been picking up on it. With the way model guidance has been at times, sometimes the operational runs have performed better than the ensembles this year, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. Like I said, I've been looking at both of the ensemble members. The Euro has a slightly better signal with this. The GFS is there, but the Euro looks maybe a little bit more prominent. But again, it's just really a messy kind of, a messy, I wouldn't even call it forecast, more so outlook if anything else. This is why it's an update. more so than anything else, because we just don't really have a whole lot of details at this point. So I guess lastly now is we'll put Jerry back on the screen here. We'll go ahead and take a look at our ensemble members. We're actually going to move that. Oops, wrong screen. You only saw an illusion. But we're going to move Jerry up there, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Atlantic as a whole here. And really, with the way things have been set up, there is a lot of activity over towards the East Pacific, but some of it, there is an opportunity in which some activity occurs over here, and this creates another intriguing scenario by the time we get towards that 10-day time frame. As we've been talking about the main development region throughout the year, you can see that pretty much anything that forms east of the 60-degree west line, which is where the Leeward Islands are, ends up turning out to sea. It's really anywhere, I would say, that's past this line here where we're going to be watching for any potential development and concerns for the lower 48. We've seen these runs all throughout the year where there have been a couple of storms that end up crossing maybe Florida or something like that, but nothing's really coming to fruition. But I will say again, this kind of looks like one of those really odd hurricane seasons to where nothing really is going to go like it normally would, where something just forms out here towards the western part of the Gulf, example, and goes this way. You could probably see something maybe even go south like this, who knows. Well, I would actually consider that unlikely, but that's besides the point. The typical order in which we would expect our tropics to behave this year's kind of been the opposite of that. So again, it's just a reminder, don't let your guard down. I'm not expecting anything crazy as of right now, but the season's not over. So again, just want to make sure I drive that message home. We'll be making further updates as we go. Appreciate y'all tuning in, even during the slow times like this. But the weather as a whole is about to pick up. We'll be making update videos on that tomorrow as well. Hopefully a little bit earlier in the day. But in any case, I appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you very soon. You all have a wonderful rest of your night and or morning by the time, at whatever time you may end up catching this. It's been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman, signing off.